Oh, in this video we're checking out the Eachine Wizard X140HV. This is a 3-inch micro and it runs up to 6S. This is, I guess, another one of these new ones that are trying to get into the 6S micros. And as you guys know from my previous 6S micro videos, I'm not generally impressed with this class because of the, basically, you have to get a giant battery here. And I'll talk about that here in a minute and the batteries that I flew this with. But I'll cover the specs first and also stuff you get in the box. Well, let's look at what we get in the box. Not a whole lot. So obviously you get the drone here and you get the props. Not a whole lot in here. You get this battery, or I guess a battery plate for bottom mounting the battery, and then some foam feet. But I suppose you could do a bottom mounted battery here if you wanted to. Not sure if that would fly any better. You might have to do that, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. You get some prop wrenches here. They're cut out of carbon fiber. That's for the prop nuts. You get some zip ties, and you get a set of extra M2 screws in case you happen to lose any. But that's pretty much it. That comes in the box. This comes as a built here, not a kit, and does not come with a receiver, and I'd have to add that myself. And I'll talk about that as well. So the rest of the specs here, you got basically like a micro alien top mounted battery style of frame here. It's 140 millimeters motor to motor. It's an H style frame, so it is longer in the width direction versus the front to back direction. You get this really interesting LED light that's on the bottom. Not that visible in the daytime. It does light up a little bit. I think it's more for nighttime flying. If you have someone following you from behind, you'll be able to see that, but it supposedly doesn't take up a lot of energy. And then it is tied into the LED system that is right there. That's a board there with an LED and a buzzer, which is the board on the bottom right over here. The motors here are very low kV. It's a 1507 2500 kV. And out of all the 6S motors I've tested, this is probably the most impressive one. Not in terms of the quality of the motor, but just the power that you get on 6S. You get a lot of top end, and even though this is kind of a heavy setup, it really just has a lot of pop. Now if you compare this to the Hobby Mate motors, which are 1505s, but at 2900 kV, that doesn't have as much top end because the stator on that one is a little bit shorter, but it does have a higher kV, so it does tend to run at a higher RPM overall throughout the whole throttle band. Hard to say which is better. I think that this weighs more and has a higher top end overall, but I think at the lower end it has a little better efficiency, so it's kind of a trade-off there. Regardless, the 1505 hobby motor and this Eachine 1507 motor is definitely better than the 1408 2400 kV HGLRC motor that's on the Aero 3 plug-and-play. And if you just consider the cost of the Aero 3, which I was not impressed with in terms of performance, that costs $199 for the plug-and-play with no receiver. This here, the Wizard, is $139, so it's $60 less. Yeah, it's significantly less for a plug-and-play without a receiver. Yeah, so it's a big deal. Fox here, Micro Aero Pro. So it's a micro camera here, CCD camera, 4:3 aspect ratio. Decent camera, no complaints about that. It's a very good camera. You get an F4 flight controller. That's the top board right there, and then right below that is a 20 amp 4-in-1 ESC that will do, I believe, 2 to up to 6S, and that is bursts up to 25 amps max. Didn't have any issues with the ESCs. They seem fine. It's only D-Shot 600, not a 32-bit ESC. And then in the back here, the top board is a video transmitter. It is power switchable via smart audio from pit mode 0, 25 milliwatts all the way up to 300 milliwatts. Seemed fine. Just come with this whip antenna. Now, you can kind of see there, it's kind of hard to see, but right here is where this whip antenna plugs in via micro FL connector, and it's just kind of flopping around here in the back when it comes out of the box. So what I did was I took a zip tie, wrapped it around the two standoffs, and then a second zip tie, wrapped it around the zip tie that's here, and then had it come up at an angle. And then I have some heat shrink holding the whip antenna to the zip tie here. And that seems to be fine. It gives a little bit of an angle, but yeah, it doesn't really clear the battery too much because the battery is like gigantic, as you can see here. And yeah, so I'll talk to that here. I'll talk about that here in a second. Let me just finish the specs. Let's see. The bottom plate on the frame is 3 millimeters. The top plate is 1.5 millimeters. And yeah, pretty much all of the things on the flight controller are all via these little plugs. So camera, video transmitter, ESCs, all that. All these are on little plugs here. So you may or may not like that, depending upon your opinions on that. It's pretty much it. Spare parts are available for everything here. I'll list those all down in the description. And now I'll just get to all the sort of the annoying things that I found about this model in terms of the setup. So it came out of the box with Betaflight 355 flashed on it, with absolutely no setup whatsoever, and no tune. So I did try to fly it one time, and it didn't fly so good. So I just the motors came down pretty hot. So if you get this out of the box and try to fly it with a tune, which is just a default Betaflight tune, it's not tuned for micros at all, you're gonna get hot motors. At least I did. I don't know about you, but that's what I got. So my warning to you is don't fly it with the setup that it comes out of the box, because it's not set up. So I went back and flashed Betaflight 4.0.2 on here onto the flight controller. It uses the Maytech F411 target. I have a video over here. I'll put a card in the corner, link down in the description to that video on how to flash Betaflight 4.0 to the flight controller. And then I went ahead and did a PID tune. I'll go ahead. I'll put the link to the CLI dump to my PIDs down in the description. So you just copy paste that into the CLI, and you'll get all my filter settings and PIDs, and that flies pretty good on this setup here. So that's the first major annoyance, is that it doesn't come with any sort of a tune out of the box. It's not flyable, and you have to set it up. But if you follow my instructions, you should be able to get it onto Betaflight 402 with the tune that I have, and should fly much better for you. And by the way, the motors were nice and cool on 6S and 4S. I flew both batteries. And the next super annoying thing was that this battery lead here that I have, it's kind of coming around the side. Actually, it was coming out of the back here, and it was coming in that space here where I actually stuck my XM Plus receiver, as you can see here between the two boards, right there. That's where the battery lead was coming through. And the reason I had to move the battery lead to the side is because there's nowhere else to put this receiver. You can see it's a really super tight build, and I think that they sort of just shrunk down to like a sort of a micro alien frame, and try to make it as slammed down as possible. There's really no space in this frame for a receiver. So what I did was I take the top plate off, and I take the video transmitter off, and I move the battery lead to the side, so it's coming out of the side over here next to a standoff here. And then it's kind of long, so I'm actually wrapping it inside of the battery strap here to keep it out of the props, and then I'm plugging it in that way. And then that gave me some space to put in the XM Plus receiver there, and then I have the antenna wires coming out of the back through here, and then just using some zip ties on the arms here to hold the antennas in place like this on both arms, and that seems to be working pretty good. So that's another annoyance. You have to make that little modification to get the receiver in there. If someone else has a better place to put the receiver, or can show how to do that, all ears. It took me a little while to figure that out, but I think moving the battery cable to the side here is going to be better anyway. The next thing that I also modified was the battery strap. So you can see this is not the battery strap that it came with. It came with two battery straps that goes to these slots here and over here, the Eachine battery, but they were too short. So I couldn't even get this is a 556S battery. This would not stay on there with the existing battery strap. So I had to take that out. So basically, took the top plate off, took those battery straps out, and then I just put this much longer GEP-RC battery strap in place here. So you'll need something that's closer to like 200 to 220 millimeters versus the default Eachine ones that they came with. And I just used the one. It was fine. You don't really need two, I don't think. And that seemed to be just fine in terms of holding it in place. No issues once you switch out the battery strap. But with the existing battery straps, forget it. You're bad if you use this one. And I'm not aware of anything smaller than this size in 6S, other than using two 3S batteries together. that's going to be an issue getting that on there and holding in place unless you switch the battery strap out. So those are the major things that I thought were annoying. Of course, you know, they're doing this to cut the cost down. That's why it's $140, not $200. But, you know, I think that I would have preferred seeing this motor on a little bit higher kV. So instead of, what is this, 2500 kV, let's say like 3600 kV, and running it on 4S would be pretty good, I think. Maybe they'll do that for a future revision. I think that would fly just fine. Now, I did fly, so again, I'll talk about the batteries. I flew the 6S 550 milliamp hour battery, and I also flew the 4S 750 milliamp hour battery. So they're, you know, not quite exactly the same size. The 750 is a little bit smaller. And surprisingly, now while the on 6S on this battery, it had like massive amounts of top end power, and so you know, it was pretty good for freestyle. It flew pretty good on the 4S 750 as well. Obviously, you're going to need more throttle because you're running the motors at a lower voltage. So with that KV motor, you're going to need, generally, the throttle range is going to be higher. But it flew pretty good. You can still do a little bit of freestyle, and you get pretty good flight times on the 750 as well. So if you don't want to switch the battery straps out and you want to use a smaller 4S battery, you can fly it on 4S. That's not... It can definitely fly on 4S, but obviously with the lower kV motors, you will want to fly it on 6S. That's the, you know, would be the goal. But yeah, in terms of like getting HD footage, like I try to stick like one of those Firefly micro cameras up here in the front, but this, with a giant battery on here like this, there's really no room in the front to put an HD camera. So I didn't bother trying to get any HD footage. I suppose you could possibly bottom mount the battery like this and then put the camera on top here. That's another way you could possibly go, but I didn't really feel like exploring that. I'm not really sure if this would fly all that great with the battery on the bottom like this versus on top, so maybe someone else can explore that and find out what's going on there with that. But this is obviously meant to be a top mounted battery design, so I flew it as it was designed. Yeah, that's pretty much in terms of the components and everything. I thought it flew pretty good, at least on my tune. Yeah, give that a try if you guys don't have a tune or don't know how to tune it. I think it generally will fly pretty good on 6S on that tune. Now on 4S, you may want to bump up the P and D gains a little bit, but I just flew it on the 6S tune that I originally set up on 4S, and it was okay. It was just a little bit on the loose side, but yeah, totally flyable even on 4S. I think that's about it. Let me see. I'm going to show you some weights here. It's pretty heavy with the big motors. I think it's like 160 grams. So yeah, about 160 grams there. So then with the 6S battery, yeah, we're going to definitely go over the 250 weight limit. So it's going to come in at 260, 266. And then with the 750 4S, yeah, just over the 250 gram limit. So I suppose you can go down to 650 4S and fly it on 4S and just be under the 250 gram weight limit, of course, with the the lower KV motors. It's still pretty puppy, even on the lower KV motors on 4S. So you know, for someone that maybe is beginning or starting out, then 4S will be totally fine for them. It's still got plenty of power even on 4S. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I'm going to show you some more flight footage. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.